What is the point of investing? Well, the main goal really is to one day live off of that money you built over the years. For me personally, I've got a stocks and shares ISA, I've got pensions, I've got other investment accounts, and this is exactly how I plan to use them one day. This is a question I've got a couple of times recently, so I thought it'd be worth making a whole video on it, and the thought process I take you through with my own investments, you can potentially apply to your investments to try and suss out one day how you can live off of your own investment pots that you're currently working hard to build, or just, you know, inherit a load of money and then you haven't really got to watch this video. Still watch it, you know, put it on mute, keep it in the background, get me some watch time, but you know, then you're living the dream. The main reason why this video is important is because different investment accounts have different pros and cons, and importantly, different accessibility dates when we can actually start dipping in and taking advantage of the fruit of our labor. If you are keen to learn all things investing, then you've come to the right place, because I personally built my own investment portfolio up from £0 to over £150,000, all whilst working 9 to 5, trying to travel, have a few pints of Guinness and all that good stuff. Before I tell you my exact investment pots, how I plan to use them, let me give you a quick bit of further context. I'm currently 27 years old, and over the last 8 years, I've built my own investment portfolio up from £0 to £150,000. I have no children that I know of. I really need to stop making that joke because it's going to backfire one day. I also have no house, no mortgage. I rent and have been renting now for the last 6 years. So what I'm trying to get across is I've probably got some big life expenses that will come in the medium term if I get a house and have some children. Well, of course, I won't be having the children. I need to find them. Yeah, we'll leave it there. That's for another video. I work full-time as a chartered accountant, and I've done that since 2019. And I then create content through my platform, Making Money Simple, on the side, and that also earns me a little bit of money. But most of my own investment contributions, and really most of my portfolio, has been built just through my 9 to 5 income over the last 7 or 8 years. Let me run you through what investment pots I have, and importantly for this video, their accessibility. Number one, we've got one of the GOATs, the stocks and shares ISA, the Lionel Messi, or would he be a pension? We'll say the Lionel Messi. We've got the stocks and shares ISA, the Leo Messi of the investing world in the UK. With a stocks and shares ISA, of course, the growth is completely tax-free, no capital gains tax, no dividend tax at any point, unless the government come in and change that. And if they do, there might be a war. But importantly for this video, it's completely accessible whenever you want. Keep that in mind as we go through the rest. Number two, we have a general investment account. So a general investment account you can use to invest into stocks and shares, ETFs and funds, but you can also use that to invest into crypto, which is how I personally use general investment accounts, because we unfortunately right now can't hold crypto directly inside ISAs or pensions. Unlike a stocks and shares ISA, and this is why stocks and shares ISAs are generally better than general investment accounts, general investment accounts have no tax advantages. So one day you may have to pay capital gains tax and you may have to pay dividend tax depending on how big your general investment account pot grows. But, and importantly, similar to a stocks and shares ISA, it is completely accessible. So I can access the money in the general investment account whenever I want. And of course, all of the money I have in crypto is held in general investment accounts. When I do access that money, I probably will, or I almost certainly will, have to pay some capital gains tax. There are, of course, ways you can actually quite easily avoid capital gains tax legally. HMRC, don't come at your boy. So you can actually avoid or reduce your CGT bill if you are using general investment accounts, but I'll save all that exhilarating chat for another video. Thirdly, I've got my defined contribution pensions. So this is mainly my workplace pension in the UK, my SIP in the UK, and also my Australian superannuation in Australia. This was something I forgot to mention in the context, which is why it's probably important to write out a full script before you make YouTube videos. But I have been living and working in Australia for the last couple of years. So some of my money is actually in Australian investment accounts, which makes my own situation a little bit more complicated. But when it does come to my pensions, most of the money is still in my UK workplace pension and UK SIP. And of course, this money is inaccessible. Currently, the access age for pensions, defined contribution pensions, is 55, and that's going up to 57 in 2028. If you have a defined benefit pension, which I unfortunately don't, DB pensions are generally a bit more lucrative, but they can be a bit more complicated to actually work out what's going on. If you've got a DB pension, just look into it and see what age you can actually access the money. Normally with DB pensions, if you try and access them earlier, you are penalised, so it's generally better to just wait until the access age and then you can get the full entitlement. But it is very specific depending on the person and the scheme. So the bottom line is just look into it and understand how much you're going to be entitled to and what age you can access the money. And that was a massive tangent, but I hope that was helpful. The fourth pot I then have, if it's still around, which is the big question, is the amazing state pension. Currently that's accessible at 66 years old, it's going up to 67 years old, and who knows where it's going to be by the time I get there in 40 years time, or just under 40 years. It might not be around, hopefully it will be. Currently it gets you about £11,000 per year if you're entitled to the whole state pension. So that's what we're looking at. Stocks and shares ISAs, tax-free, accessible whenever. General investment accounts, taxable, accessible whenever. Pensions, accessible down the line. And an important point to make with pensions is you most likely will have to pay some tax. At some point, you get 25% tax-free lump sum, and then 75% is taxable. Once again, subject to change depending on the rules. But what it essentially means is, depending on how you draw your pension, you almost certainly will pay some tax on a part of it. And then fourthly, state pensions, once again, will be taxable as it's part of your income and accessible at 67. So that is the TLDR of the 4 pots, the tax status, and the accessibility. So how do I plan on using these? Well, clearly when I actually access the money depends on when I will be able to access the money. So the workplace pension, I currently can't access until 55. The state pension, I currently can't access until 66. So what that means is, and you probably worked this out yourself, I'm gonna have to plug the gap if I want to retire early by using my stocks and shares ISA or my general investment accounts. One thing to quickly mention, I promised the final tangent of this video, I've got a free investing guide that I'll link below. If you're brand new to investing or even just want to know a bit more, just give it a read. We go through all these different types of accounts and it will help you out. So assuming the rules stay the same, which is unlikely, but just let's play make-believe for a sec, assuming no government's come and absolutely blitz the rules, what that means is I can use my stocks and shares ISA and general investment accounts to live off of before retirement age. So in an ideal world, what I'd like to do is start tapping into that money potentially in my mid-40s. As I mentioned, whilst I have built my own portfolio from 0 to 6 figures over the last 8 years, I currently have no mortgage because I've been renting and I've got no children. So my investment contributions might not necessarily be linear over time, but hopefully, because I've got that big base there already now, I'll at least get a good 20 years of compounding even if I don't invest another penny, although of course I will be investing a lot more pennies. And those pennies make the pounds, and I can make the millions, and that's how I'm gonna live off this money. Boom. Video not over, don't click away. My plan in reality and practically would be to sell down investments in my general investment account to take advantage of the capital gains tax allowance, which is currently £3,000 per tax year. I could sell further investments from my general investment account and pay capital gains tax, which if I'm a basic rate taxpayer, when I come to actually do this, it would be 18%. So it's slightly lower than income tax based on current rates. In my general investment account, it's pretty much all crypto, because as I mentioned, you can't invest into crypto in pensions and ISAs, and I invest into Bitcoin and Ethereum directly using crypto.com, but all that money is in general investment accounts. So I would need to work out the way at the time, based on the current rules, to sell down this money and minimize my tax bill, and that can then start to fund part of my lifestyle. The other piece of this early retirement puzzle for me, and this second piece is much bigger,
that's what she said,
is my stocks and shares ISA. As mentioned, the ISA is completely tax-free, so I can sell part of this down or draw down some of it and use that once again to fund my lifestyle with the general investment account. The key thing here is though, this is assuming this pot is big enough. You may have heard of the 4% rule, which is essentially one day how you can live off of your investment. So the real key, and this is obvious, but the key is I need to build these pots to a total size that's big enough so I can draw down on them and then live off of that money forever using the 4% rule. This isn't some sort of dark magic. It actually works in most time frames tested, where you can build your pot to a total amount, draw down 4%, and if that 4% covers your total annual expenses, then technically you can live forever off of your investments. So my plan will be continue to grow these ISA general investment account and pension pots over the years to a total level, and then hopefully 10 years before I come to access my pension, I can start to draw down on my general investment account and stocks and shares ISA to bridge that gap until I can access my workplace pension and my SIPP. Of course, then we have my defined contribution pensions. Of that amount, 25% is a tax-free lump sum, and the other 75% is taxable. There is different ways you can live off of your pension, but essentially with the 75% that is taxable, you may have to pay some tax on that. So I would draw down at least the amount to fill my personal allowance, because that is completely tax-free. And then anything over my personal allowance and below £50,000, I'd pay 20% tax. So if I draw down £30,000 from my pension, I'll then pay 20% tax on 17.5K roughly based on the current rules. However, in an ideal world, and you might be seeing where I go with this now, I can draw down 12.5K from my pension, tax-free. I can withdraw some money from my stocks and shares ISA, tax-free, and I could sell down some of my general investment accounts to make use of the capital gains tax allowance, currently £3,000 per tax year. So there could be a situation where across those different pots, and this is why having different pots can be good because there are different pros and cons and you can sort of maximize them in the best way. By using these different pots based on the current rules, I could actually pay relatively a small amount, if any, tax at all. And let me just quickly backtrack for a sec. I'm 27, so this is looking 20 years into the future, and this video might become redundant in 6 months if the government come in and change everything. Unlikely, of course, but just to quickly caveat with that. And then after the workplace pension, which I'll access at 55, 57, whenever it's accessible, we've then got a state pension at 66. So in that 10-year gap, I will use my stocks and shares ISA and general investment accounts, or anything that's left, my workplace pension and my SIPP to get me to that 66, 67-year-old mark, and then I get access to the state pension. Although hopefully, using the 4% rule, even when I get to state pension age, which is going to be in 40 years' time, I would still have a lot of money in my pensions and my ISAs because that money would still be growing over time as I'm withdrawing down from it, in theory. Of course, future returns unpredictable. No one knows what's going to happen. I currently have all of my money in my ISAs and pensions in global index funds and ETFs, and I've then got a bit of crypto on the side. The crypto is a much smaller part of my portfolio, so most of my money really is going to be in these global index funds and ETFs, in my ISA and pensions that I'm going to draw down on. And that is how I personally plan to live off of my investments one day. Your situation is probably going to be very different, but hopefully the things we've gone through here have given you something to think about, and you can then try and suss out how you plan on using your different pots to one day live off of your investments. Of course, the most important thing really is to draw on your working years to grow these pots to be as big as possible, and the bigger you can grow them to, the more you can draw down on them, and also probably the earlier you can start to draw down on them, particularly if you build up a nice and fat stocks and shares ISA pot. Hope this video was helpful. One quick reminder, the free guide will be linked in the description if you want to learn a bit more about investing. And if you're still here, click on this video to go even more down the investing rabbit hole. I'll see you in the next video.